Hey everybody, Casey here with Life Abstract Gaming, and this week I wanted to talk about video game music, but specifically game music that isn't just iconic or plays in the background. This is music that influences the story.
I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, and I fear no evil because I'm blind to it all. In my mind, my gun, they comfort me because I know I'll kill my enemies when they come.
Now to clarify what I'm getting at here, I'm not talking about the most popular video game themes like for Mario or Zelda, because while they are legendary in their own right and do indeed set a mode for the games they're featured in, they don't necessarily help convey anything specific about the game's narrative, at least not in the way these songs I've chosen do. The songs I'm talking about help influence how the player perceives the events they are experiencing, oftentimes coming in not just during said events, but even before or after them. Take the Mega Man X ending theme for example. The Mega Man franchise has long been known for having some of the best chiptune music in gaming. Its 8 and 16-bit guitar riffs put players in the futuristic world of sentient machine-on-machine violence, where you as Mega Man hunt down rogue robots and bring them to justice. But in Mega Man X, after you defeated the final boss, an ending sequence plays showing Mega Man on a cliffside watching the base he just left explode in the distance. Instead of triumphant music, you get a rather somber melody as the text scroll explains how conflicted he is about having to destroy other robots and what other options he could have taken instead. At no other point in the entire game did I as the player question whether Mega Man was in the right or how he felt about being tasked with destroying his own kind. But that melody during that sequence drives it all home and added a serious amount of depth to a game that until that point was just mindless action and fun. Red Dead Redemption by Rockstar Games is another title that makes amazing use of music. Rockstar, who also develops the Grand Theft Auto games, revolutionized many aspects of modern gameplay, but using licensed music as a backdrop to player-controlled actions was one of their best. In Red Dead, however, which takes place in the Old West, there's no such thing as radio on a horse, so music was actually few and far between until about halfway through the game, after a series of missions that finally allow you to ride down into Mexico. Far Away by Jose Gonzalez then starts to play while you as a player only have the goal of riding your horse across the terrain to enter Mexico. It's a scene that can be different for people depending on the time of day or weather conditions, but the feeling that haunting song evokes and the words that he sings while you ride actually instill in you the frustration and toll this journey must be taking on John Marsden. All he wants to do is be home with his family, but this job he's been forced into by the government has taken him as far away from that as he's ever been.
It's so far away.
Perfect Dark is probably on the short list of my favorite games of all time, and having memorable music is a big reason why. If you don't know, Perfect Dark is an N64 first-person shooter. It's essentially the spiritual successor to the legendary GoldenEye, as it uses the same engine but is a completely original story about a female spy named Joanna Dark, who is a top agent at a private organization called the Carrington Institute. After the game's opening mission, Joanna is back at the Institute and free to walk around the large complex and talk to various NPCs, all the while the coolest, most mellow music plays in the background. The Carrington Institute theme perfectly captures the essence of Joanna's demeanor as the most capable and cool spy to ever do the job. The song is memorable on its own, but the fact that the Institute is a hub area that you come back to periodically burns it into your brain and makes it that much more intense when the building is attacked in a later game mission and the song changes to a far more frantic and hectic version, again mirroring Joanna's feelings while her home is under fire and there's little she can do to save it and its people. The first Mirror's Edge game had an original theme song called Still Alive created for it by Lisa Miskowski, who's credited as the songwriter for Shape of My Heart by the Backstreet Boys. The song she wrote and performed isn't actually featured in the game, but several remix versions of it are, including an instrumental version that plays along with the startup loop when the game is left on the main menu. Mirror's Edge was a completely fresh idea for a game when it first released. First-person free-running as a central game mechanic, coupled with the game's premise of those free-runners being the only method of free communication in a dystopian future, made the light and flowing melody and music of the theme incredibly fitting. Just based on those instrumentals, I searched out the full song and was wowed. It also has a Mirror's Edge themed music video to go along with it. Portal 2, in my opinion, has the best ending sequence in all of gaming, and as you can guess, the music featured plays a huge role in that. If you're not familiar with Portal 2's story, then there are spoilers ahead, but to be fair, this game did release 6 years ago. The dynamic between your character, Chell, and the hilariously sadistic AI GLaDOS goes from antagonistic to codependent, but remains disdainful until near the end when you start to learn that GLaDOS was originally the uploaded mind of a woman named Carol, who was the secretary of Aperture Sciences founder Cave Johnson. You also receive heavy hints at the fact that your character is more than likely the secret love child of Carol and Cave Johnson, though it's never expressly stated in the story. The re-emergence of GLaDOS' lost human mind leads her to save Chell at the end of the game and let her finally leave the lab despite having multiple chances to kill her. GLaDOS does however claim to delete the last remnants of Carol from her memory before sending you up an elevator where doors open, placing you in front of a firing squad of turrets. But instead of shooting you, the turrets begin to serenade Chell with a beautiful synthesized opera. The melody and tones of the song playing as Chell ascends up the elevator invoke the feeling of a mother saying goodbye to her child. The lyrics sung are actually in Italian, but the most important parts translate to "Beautiful dear, my darling beauty, my child, oh heavens, Chell." And later on in the lyrics, "My dear child, why don't you walk far away, so far away from science?" And finally at the end, "Ah my dear, ah my little girl, oh dear, my dear." Clearly an ode to a daughter from a mother. For all the games I've talked about, music wasn't just used to fill in the background of the game you were playing, but was used to enhance it. It conveyed emotion or even information in certain instances that maybe wouldn't have landed in the same way if just told outright in dialogue. While movies can do a very similar thing with their musical scores, it still doesn't really compare to the connection that can be created when the perfect moment in gameplay is accompanied by the perfect piece of music. So, have any of you also had similar moments with music in games? What are some really good ones that you've had? Let us know. We're listening.